There's something I've noticed over the years working with men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. The ones who succeed with women aren't the ones with the most money, the best physique, or even the smoothest lines. They're the men who understand one fundamental truth. At this stage of life, a woman isn't looking to be dazzled, she's looking to be understood. And here's what's remarkable. There are specific things you can say, rooted in genuine observation and emotional intelligence, that will keep you present in her thoughts long after you've parted ways. Not because you've manipulated her, but because you've touched something real. Something most men, even good men, completely miss. Welcome. I'm grateful you're here. Whether this is your first time joining us, or you've been part of this community for a while, I want you to know this isn't about games or tactics. This is about becoming the kind of man a woman feels safe opening her heart to, the kind of man she actually thinks about when she's alone. If that resonates with you, stay with me. Why most compliments die on arrival. Let me start with a hard truth. Most compliments men give don't land. They evaporate the moment they're spoken. Why? Because they're generic, interchangeable, surface level. You look beautiful tonight. You have gorgeous eyes. That dress looks amazing on you. Now, I'm not saying these are bad things to say. They're polite, they're kind, but they're also forgettable. A woman over 50 has heard these exact phrases hundreds, maybe thousands of times, from colleagues, from strangers, from men on dating apps who copy and paste the same opener to 20 different women. These compliments don't register as meaningful because they don't require seeing her. You could say the same thing to any woman who walked by, and deep down, she knows that. Here's what psychology teaches us. People don't remember what you say nearly as much as they remember how you made them feel. Women, especially emotionally intelligent women in midlife, are extraordinarily attuned to authenticity. They can sense when you're going through the motions. They can feel when your attention is shallow. But when a compliment reflects true observation, when it speaks to who she is, not just what she looks like, something shifts. She stops. She feels seen. And that feeling? That stays with her. This is the difference between a man she forgets by morning and a man she finds herself thinking about 3 days later, wondering when she'll hear from him again. The compliment she didn't know she needed. Let me give you the first one. It's simple, powerful, and tragically underused. I really enjoy the way your mind works. Now, if your first thought is, that's it? That's the big secret? I understand. It doesn't sound dramatic. It's not cinematic. But let me explain why it works on a psychological level. Women, particularly women at this stage of life, are used to being valued for how they look, how they serve, or what they provide. Their appearance, their caretaking, their accommodation. Very few people stop to appreciate the architecture of their thinking, the way they connect ideas, their perspective on life, the unique lens through which they see the world. When you notice that when you genuinely appreciate her intelligence, her humor, her insight, you're doing something radical. You're valuing her inner world. And here's the beautiful part. This kind of compliment creates curiosity. She'll wonder, what did he notice? What about the way I think stood out to him? That question replays in her mind. It keeps you present even when you're not physically there. But, and this is critical, it only works if it's true. You can't fake this. Women in midlife have finely tuned intuition. If you're saying it because you read it in an article, she'll sense the hollowness. It has to come from genuine attention. So how do you do that? You listen, not to respond, not to impress, but to understand. You notice the way she frames a story. You pay attention when she shares an opinion. You observe the small ways her personality reveals itself in conversation. And when something genuinely strikes you, when you find yourself thinking, that's an interesting way to see it, or I hadn't thought of it that way, that's when you say it, calmly, sincerely, without fanfare. I really enjoy the way your mind works. Watch what happens. She'll smile, maybe look down for a moment, and later when she's alone, she'll replay that moment. Because you gave her something rare, recognition of her inner self, the compliment that builds emotional presence. Here's the second one, and this goes even deeper. There's something about you that stays with me. Let me unpack why this is so powerful. Most men try to build attraction through action, through doing more, saying more, showing up more. They think volume equals impact. But attraction, especially for emotionally mature women, grows in the spaces between interactions. It grows when she thinks about you in your absence. When you tell a woman that something about her lingers in your mind, not her looks, not her accomplishments, but her essence, you're speaking to her impact. You're telling her that she's memorable not because of what she does, but because of who she is. This creates a kind of gentle mystery. She'll wonder, what is it about me? What does he notice? And in wondering, she stays connected to you emotionally. The conversation doesn't end when you part ways. It continues in her thoughts. Women, especially at midlife, often question their relevance. They wonder if they still have it, if they're still captivating, if they can still make an impression. Society tells them they're invisible after a certain age, so when a man, especially a good grounded man, tells her that she has a presence that stays with him, it touches something tender. But again, this isn't a line, it's an observation. It only lands if you've actually felt it. If you've found yourself thinking about her at odd moments, if the conversation you had stays with you, if her laughter echoes in your mind. When that's true, and you share it simply and honestly, it becomes an anchor point in her memory. This is also a compliment that demonstrates emotional availability without neediness. You're not saying, I can't stop thinking about you in a desperate way. You're calmly acknowledging that she's made an impression. That's confident, that's mature, and that's deeply attractive. The compliment that builds emotional safety now, the third one. This is perhaps the most vulnerable, and for that reason the most powerful. I feel more at ease when I'm around you. A lot of men resist this kind of honesty. They think admitting they feel something makes them weak, that showing any softness will diminish their masculinity. But here's what I know, after years of working with men and studying relationships. Emotional honesty, delivered with calm confidence, is one of the most magnetic traits a man can have. When you tell a woman she brings you peace, you're communicating something profound. You're saying her presence improves your inner state. That she doesn't just look good or make you laugh, she actually makes your life feel better. Think about how rare that is. Most compliments are about what a woman gives visually or socially. Very few speak to the quality of her energy, the way her presence settles a room, the way she makes people feel safe to be themselves. Women are deeply relational. They want to know they matter. Not in a performative way, but in a soulful way. When you tell her you feel calmer around her, you're recognizing her emotional value. And that recognition builds trust. Trust is the foundation of everything meaningful. Without it, there's no real intimacy, no depth, just surface-level interaction. But when a woman feels that you trust her presence, that you feel safe with her, it creates space for her to trust you in return. This is where real connection begins. But like the others, this only works if it's true. If you genuinely feel more grounded when you're with her, say it. If her energy brings you calm, acknowledge it, not with drama, not with heavy expectation, just with simple honesty. I feel more at ease when I'm around you. She'll remember that. Because you didn't just compliment her, you let her affect you. And that vulnerability, when it comes from a place of strength, is incredibly attractive. The energy beneath the words now. Here's the part most men get wrong. They hear these compliments and treat them like formulas. They memorize the words and deliver them like scripts, and it falls flat. Why? Because the words themselves aren't the magic. The energy beneath the words is the magic. A compliment delivered without presence is just noise, but a compliment that arises from genuine observation, delivered with calm sincerity, becomes a moment she won't forget. Women are extraordinarily sensitive to congruence. They can feel when your words match your energy and when they don't. If you're saying something to get something, she'll sense it. The attraction dies. But when you speak because something genuinely moved you, your body language shifts, your tone softens, your eye contact steadies. The compliment doesn't feel like a transaction. It feels like a gift. This is why being present matters more than being perfect. You don't need a perfect line. You need to be genuinely there, paying attention, noticing, feeling. When a woman senses that you're truly seeing her, not performing for her, everything changes. She relaxes, she opens, she starts to trust that you're not like the others, that you're actually interested in her, not just the idea of her. Why attraction grows in silence? Here's something else I want you to understand. Attraction doesn't just happen in conversation. It happens after the conversation, when she's alone. Women reflect. They replay moments. They revisit feelings. If you gave her something real to think about, something that touched her emotionally, she'll return to it again and again. This is why some men remain unforgettable, Even when they're not texting constantly or trying to stay top of mind, their presence was substantial enough to leave an imprint. You don't need to fill every silence. You don't need to entertain constantly. You need to create moments worth remembering. And that happens when you slow down, when you speak with intention, when you value quality over quantity. A man who's comfortable with silence signals confidence. A man who doesn't rush signals emotional security. A man who listens more than he talks signals respect. All of these things matter more than charm, more than wit, more than any rehearsed line. Women at this stage of life have seen it all. They're not impressed by flash. They're moved by substance, building trust through authenticity. At the end of the day, what makes a man unforgettable isn't what he says, it's who he is when he says it. Are you grounded? Are you honest? Are you genuinely interested in her as a person? Or are you just interested in being liked? Women can feel the difference, and they're drawn to the former. So instead of trying to impress, focus on connecting. Instead of performing, focus on being present. Instead of chasing validation, focus on offering appreciation. When you do that, when you become a man who notices, who values, who respects, you don't have to work to be remembered. You just are. Final thoughts. I want to leave you with this. The world we live in is noisy, fast, shallow. Most people skim the surface of each other's lives without ever really looking. But you have the opportunity to be different, to be the kind of man who sees people, who values their inner world, who makes them feel like they matter. That's not manipulation. That's not a trick. That's emotional maturity. And it's one of the most attractive qualities a man can have, especially at this stage of life. So the next time you're with a woman you're genuinely interested in, don't default to the generic. Don't tell her what every other man has already said. Instead, pay attention, notice something real. And when you feel moved to say something, say it simply, honestly, and without expectation. There's something about you that stays with me. I feel more at ease when I'm around you. These aren't lines, they're observations. And when they come from the right place, they become moments she won't forget. Thank you for being here. If this resonated with you, I'd love for you to join our community. We talk about these things every week: real psychology, real connection, real growth. Leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what stood out to you most. And remember, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. I'll see you in the next one.